Paris, September 1989. Before GoPros, before YouTube, before any of it. An unknown man in black leathers has strapped a camcorder to his fuel tank using brackets and tape. Not a GoPro, those don't exist yet. A full-size VHS camera, roughly the size and weight of a house brick. Every bump in the road shakes the image. He is threading through traffic at more than 250 kilometers per hour on the boulevard Périphérique, the ring road circling Paris, where the speed limit is 90. 11 minutes and 4 seconds later, he crosses his starting point. He parks the bike, removes the camera, and disappears. His name is Pascal. The French press will call him Le Prince Noir, the Black Prince. And for the next 36 years, no one has been able to find him. Until now. Part 1. The world he rode into. To understand what Le Prince Noir did, you need to understand the world he did it in. The year is 1989. Paris is a city of 2 million people. The boulangeries are pulling bread from their ovens. The street cleaners are finishing their routes. It's a Sunday morning in September. Early, but not empty. The Berlin Wall is about to fall. Tim Berners-Lee has just written his first proposal for something he's calling the World Wide Web. It hasn't been built yet. In France, the country is celebrating 200 years since the revolution. And the motorcycle world? The motorcycle world is in a golden era. It doesn't yet know is golden. In Japan, Suzuki has just released the GSX-R 1100, the K model, 1989 vintage. It weighs 210 kilograms dry. It produces 143 horsepower at 9,500 revolutions. Its top speed is 269 kilometers per hour, straight from the factory floor. Contemporary road tests described it as, and I'm quoting here, one of the world's ultimate performance motorcycles. At the time, that was barely an exaggeration. This is the machine Pascal chose. Gray and black, matching his leathers, the lower fairing removed for cleaner airflow. A Devil exhaust system bolted on. A French brand, a touch of national pride in a record-breaking machine. And that camera, mounted forward on the tank, pointing at the road ahead. The Paris Périphérique is not a gentle road. It is 35 kilometers of controlled access highway built in the 1970s. 4 lanes in each direction, no hard shoulder, tunnels under the Seine, dozens of exits feeding traffic from every corner of the city. On a normal morning in 1989, it carries 270,000 vehicles a day. That averages out at about 11,000 cars every hour. Even on a Sunday morning at 7 a.m., which is when Pascal rode, a quiet Périphérique still has significant traffic. The speed limit was 90 kilometers per hour. Pascal averaged 192. He was doing more than double the legal limit for the entire circuit, threading live traffic the entire way. Some call it reckless, some call it art. They're both right, and none of that changes the fact that it happened and what it set in motion. Part 2. The run. Before the run, something remarkable happened. And this is the detail that most people miss. Pascal didn't just show up alone. He arrived with an escort, dozens of bikers, headlights cutting through the early morning dark, riding with him through the streets of Paris to the edge of the Périphérique. One witness described seeing the procession, round headlights glowing in the pre-dawn, the low rumble of engines building, a silent understanding between riders. When Pascal reached the entry point, he saluted the convoy with a wheelie. Then he went. The footage begins. The camera shakes. There is no image stabilization in 1989, nothing between the vibration of a motorcycle engine at high revs and the lens recording everything. What you see is what he saw. The windscreen wipers of overtaken cars visible for a fraction of a second. The flash of headlights coming the other way. The speedometer creeping upward. 150 kilometers per hour. That's 93 miles per hour. Most road cars of that era could barely touch this number. Pascal is threading traffic at this speed with the ease of someone who has done it before. A lot. 180, 200, 220. A truck looms ahead. He moves left, slips past, moves right. The truck doesn't react. It's possible the driver never even saw him. At these speeds, Pascal is in and out of a vehicle's blind spot in less than a second. 260 kilometers per hour, 161 miles per hour. This is not a number that belongs on a public road. This is a number that belongs on a racetrack, behind barriers, with marshals and safety cars, and helicopters overhead. Pascal is doing it past families on their way to Sunday morning church. If you have ever ridden a motorcycle, you know how fast 120 kilometers per hour feels. The wind pressure alone is physical. Your visor rattles, your jacket inflates. The road information coming through the bars is almost too fast to process. Now double that. And then imagine doing it between moving cars. At certain moments in the footage, you can hear him. Not words, not commentary, just the occasional intake of breath, the slight shift in his breathing pattern as he negotiates something particularly close. He's not fearless. He is controlling the fear. That is a completely different thing. 11 minutes, 4 seconds, the circuit is complete. He has averaged 192 kilometers per hour for 35 kilometers of live Parisian traffic on a Sunday morning. He parks the bike somewhere the cameras can't follow. He picks up the camera. And, as far as the world is concerned, he ceases to exist. Part 3. The Firestorm. On September 29, 1989, days after the run, French national television broadcast the footage. La 5, France's fifth channel, ran a segment called La Course Interdite, the Forbidden Race, presented by a journalist named Patrick de Carolis, the same Patrick de Carolis who would later become president of France Télévisions. He introduced the footage with appropriate moral condemnation, and then he broadcast it to the entire country. What happened next followed the oldest pattern in media history. A thing that is condemned becomes a thing that is famous. A thing that is famous becomes a thing that is desired. The footage spread. Within weeks, bootleg VHS copies were circulating among French bikers, then European bikers, then anyone who could get their hands on a copy. Paris Match ran a spread on October 5, 1989, 4 days after the broadcast, with photographs by Alain Ernoult under the headline Le Kamikaze du Périphérique, the kamikaze of the ring road. He was shown in full leathers, helmet on, face invisible. The photographs showed his motorcycle. They showed his girlfriend. They showed everything except who he was. The French government's broadcasting regulator, the CSA, the Conseil Supérieur de l'Audiovisuel, issued a formal condemnation on October 4th. They used the word deplore. They deplore the broadcast, not a fine, not a prosecution, a strong letter. 800 motorcyclists had died on French roads that year. The safety advocates were right to be furious. The footage had been broadcast in a country where every person watching knew someone who'd been killed or injured on a motorcycle. Le Prince Noir had risked not just his own life, but the lives of every driver he passed. And yet the debate that ignited in France in the autumn of 1989 has never fully gone out. Because what Pascal did was not simply dangerous. It was dangerous and filmed and beautiful and precise and impossibly skilled. And those things are hard to hold in your head at the same time. But that is what the footage demands. The police opened an investigation, speeding, grand excès de vitesse, on public roads, a serious offense. They had footage of the crime. They had a motorcycle. What they did not have was a name, a face, a witness, or a plate number. The statute of limitations on his offenses has long since expired. He cannot legally be charged now, even if they found him tomorrow. He was never caught. His identity was never officially confirmed. The investigation closed. The VHS copies kept spreading. Part 4. The Man Who Came After. 13 years later in Stockholm, a Swedish bike mechanic named Patrick Furstenhoff watched the bootleg footage of Le Prince Noir's run. He already had a Guinness World Record. In 1999, he had performed a wheelie at 307.86 kilometers per hour, 191 miles per hour on one wheel. A record that still stands today, still unbeaten. But the footage from Paris in 1989 planted a specific idea in his head. In 2002, he strapped a camera to his helmet and completed the Stockholm to Uppsala run, 68 kilometers in 14 minutes and 55 seconds. The footage was released on DVD under the name Ghost Rider. It became one of the most watched motorcycle videos in history. Ghost Rider explicitly cited Le Prince Noir, not as an inspiration in vague terms, but as a specific target. In February 2005, in an interview with the Dutch motorcycle magazine Moto 73, he said this: I rode the same distance of 35 kilometers in 9 minutes and 57 seconds. However, I only rode at night instead of during the daytime. Pascal rode during the daylight in busy traffic. 9 minutes, 57 seconds. Ghost Rider had beaten the record on a 2004 Suzuki GSX-R 1000, lighter and more agile than his famous Turbo Hayabusa, chosen specifically for weaving through traffic, with carbon fiber bodywork. At approximately 5 in the morning with minimal traffic, he completed the Périphérique 7 seconds faster than Pascal had in 1989. Now here's something your comment section will pick up if you don't address it first. Ghost Rider's own DVD incorrectly credits Prince Noir's motorcycle as a Kawasaki ZX-R 750. It is wrong. Every French primary source, every forensic analysis of the original footage, every GSX-R specialist who has studied the cockpit layout, the 5-speed transmission, and the fork geometry on screen agrees on the same answer. It was a 1989 Suzuki GSX-R 1100K. Even legends make mistakes. The French archives don't. The French motorcycle community noted carefully that the conditions were not equivalent. Ghost Rider rode at night on an empty road, on a machine producing significantly more horsepower than the 1989 Suzuki. Pascal had ridden in morning traffic, in daylight, past cars and lorries, on a motorcycle that was already at the limit of what 1989 engineering could offer. Many French riders still consider the 1989 run the harder achievement. But what matters more than the comparison is this. Ghost Rider knew the name. He called him Pascal. In his own words, Pascal's record held for a long time. He knew who he was honored to beat. Prince Noir had become the foundation on which the entire genre of motorcycle outlaw cinema was built. Ghost Rider, the DVDs, the YouTube channels, the millions of hours of motovlog content that exists today. All of it traces a direct line back to a gray and black GSX-R 1100 on a Sunday morning in September 1989. Part 5. Who was he? The Hunt. His name is Pascal. That is all anyone knows. Here is what 36 years of investigation has produced. His name is Pascal. This is the pseudonym he used, reported in 1989, and never contradicted. His face has never been publicly confirmed. His surname has never been officially released. A forum post from 2025 by someone claiming a personal connection described him as approximately 27 years old in 1989. Calm, tall, athletic, and a wry helmet, a girlfriend photographed by Paris Match. If that estimate is correct, he's approximately 64 years old today, in February 2026. Over the years, several men have claimed to be Prince Noir. The most prominent was a man named Bruno Pasqualaggi, who came forward around 2011. He was extensively investigated by a dedicated blog. Prince Noir 1989.wordpress.com, which spent years forensically examining the claim. Their conclusion was unambiguous. He was not Pascal. The physical proportions didn't match the 1989 photographs. His voice and diction didn't match the audio commentary in the footage. He couldn't produce the motorcycle, the helmet, the leathers, or any verifiable artifact from 1989. No witness from the convoy confirmed him. French Wikipedia, which had briefly noted his claim, removed it. A novelist named Frédéric Sirier, who wrote about the Prince Noir in his 2013 book Melo, confirmed in interviews that the real Pascal was still alive at the time of writing. He said, "There are many barriers around this Pascal." He knew who Pascal was. He chose not to say. Ghost Rider himself, in that 2005 MOTO 73 interview, made one final remarkable statement. He said, "His problems with justice are past, so we will surely hear from him soon." We have not heard from him. He has not come forward. The statute of limitations has long since expired. There is no legal risk to revealing himself now, and yet he remains hidden. Why? People who study this question, and there are people who have devoted serious time to it, suggest a few answers. One is that the anonymity is the point. Prince Noir as a symbol is larger than Pascal the person. The moment he reveals himself, the myth collapses into biography. He becomes a 64-year-old man with a name and a history and an opinion. He is no longer the Black Prince. Another answer is simpler. He saw what happened to every other person who claimed to be him. He watched an imposter be systematically destroyed by the evidence. He knows that his anonymity is both his protection and his legacy. And he has decided that silence, maintained this long, is worth more than any interview. In 2015, a Paris art museum, the Palais de Tokyo, one of the most prestigious contemporary art institutions in France, included the 1989 footage in an exhibition called Le Bord des Mondes, The Edge of Worlds. The curatorial text described the run as existential performance. The motorcycle and the man's body become one, transformed into a hybrid and unstable being, seeking intimacy with the limit. The man who taped a VHS camera to a fuel tank was hanging in a museum. Part 6, Why It Still Matters. We live in a world of 4K cameras and image stabilization and satellite navigation and traction control and automatic emergency braking. A GoPro Hero 13 weighs 154 grams and shoots footage so sharp it can embarrass a broadcast camera from 2010. Every detail of a motorcycle run can be captured, shared, and watched by millions within hours. Pascal had a VHS camcorder, duct tape, and an idea that no one had tried before. Everything that followed, every motorcycle YouTube channel, every Ghost Rider DVD, every motovlog, every viral police chase clip, draws its DNA from 11 minutes and 4 seconds on the Paris Ring Road in September 1989. The genre of the POV motorcycle run was invented in one morning by one person on one motorcycle, and that person has never told anyone his last name. There are riders in Parisian motorcycle forums today, people in their 50s and 60s who were young men in 1989, who will tell you that the 11 minutes and 4 seconds time was their benchmark, their white whale, the target they aimed for on their own bikes, on their own early mornings, on their own versions of the same road. None of them beat it. Ghost Rider beat it by 7 seconds, and he went out of his way to make sure the world knew whose record he was breaking. Le Prince Noir inspired the man who inspired a generation. That is a legacy. The question. As of today, February 2026, Le Prince Noir has been anonymous for 36 years, 2 months, and a handful of days. He has outlasted his own statute of limitations. He has outlasted attempts by at least one imposter to claim his name. He has outlasted the era that created him. Ghost Rider is still riding. The footage he made in homage to Pascal is still watched by millions. The Périphérique is still there, still circling Paris, still running at the same 90-kilometer-per-hour speed limit it had in 1989. Watched now by speed cameras every few kilometers. And somewhere, if the novelist is right, if Ghost Rider is right, if the forum posts from people who claim to know him are right, somewhere, a man in his mid-60s knows that he changed everything. He knows that a museum put his footage on a gallery wall. He knows that the greatest motorcycle outlaw of the following generation cited him by name. He knows that in the motorcycle world, his pseudonym carries more weight than most real names ever will. And he is still not talking. Maybe that is the most punk rock thing about him. Not the speed, not the camera, not the 11 minutes and 4 seconds, the silence. 36 years of absolute, unbroken silence. So tell me in the comments right now, should Le Prince Noir finally reveal himself in 2026? Or does the myth only survive because Pascal never will? Drop your answer below. And if you have never seen the original 1989 footage, search for it. Watch it raw, in the original quality. No stabilization, no color grading, no cleanup. It is still the moment everything began.